Hello, everyone, and welcome to Bite Size Panel Edition, where we take a quick but deep look at the human condition at work, at home, everywhere. I'm your host, show creator, animator, and business coach, Peter K Weiner, and today we have a panel of two joining us who are here to discuss today's topic, which I will reveal shortly. First, I'd like to welcome Director of Coaching at MAPS Business and Ironman, Terry Gurno. We'll hear more about that soon. And let's also welcome once again Gia Buonaguro, MFT, EMDR, astrologist, essence therapist, so many other things. She has enough letters after her name to start her own alphabet. And I'm so excited to have this power panel with me today. Welcome, guys. Terry, let's start with you. Tell us a little bit about yourself and maybe something that's going on right now that you're working on.
Yeah, well, as you mentioned, I'm the director of coaching here at MAPS Business Coaching. Also, we're starting and have started a training arm. So we're training trainers as well. And I oversee that. So, I live up here in the beautiful Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, amongst the mountains and the lakes. So we've been here since 1997 and absolutely love it.
Gia, what have you been up to? And just give us just a little taste of what your background is, what you do.
Okay, I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, and I specialize in trauma, and I use EMDR for trauma and also somatic awareness work, where we bring the body into the work and kind of look at where these experiences might be happening in the body. What kind of information are we getting from the body? Because sometimes we know what we feel or what we want, but we can't express it, or sometimes we're blocked and don't know what we feel, and we don't understand why we're blocked and why we can't move forward. So sometimes I like to explore sensations in the body to bring the body mind in to meet the mind and see what that conversation could be like.
It is a pretty amazing experience. It pulls you out of your head.
Exactly.
So today's snippet is entitled Getting There. And in it, we'll explore how to set a goal and then readjust as the path might end up quite different from what we expected at the beginning. And Terry has a very interesting story around that topic. So let's take a look at this clip and see what happens. All right, let's roll it. No matter where you're planning to go, your perspective of your destination changes the moment you decide to embark. And as you progress, it keeps changing, often in unpredictable ways. But as long as you have your goal in mind, you'll get there. You might be a few blocks away from the Empire State Building and be so impressed with the vision before you that you're inspired to go all the way to the top. As you get closer, the building is so tall that you can no longer see the top. Yet, you still know it's there and you still want to go. So you head inside, get in the elevator, and although you can't see your destination at all anymore, all you can see are the numbers dinging off in front of you, you still have faith that you are rapidly moving towards the observation floor for the view of a lifetime. You're confident that you've made the right decision long before those elevator doors ever open. Goals are very much like this, where we see the whole picture at the beginning. But as we progress, even if our destination is obscured, we still have faith that we're moving in the right direction because our initial intention remains intact. But sometimes that path isn't so obvious. So here's another metaphor for you. When hiking up a mountain, you might see the peak at the beginning of the trail, but there will be numerous times along the way when you can't. And as your destination becomes obscured, the path might also become steep and difficult to navigate. It may be further than you thought. It looks so much closer from the bottom. You might need to rest more than anticipated. And the sun might be setting soon, and don't cougars come out at night? And at some point, you realize you were ill-prepared and need to head back down that mountain. So after all that, you get to the bottom, you're about to go home, and then you turn around and you take another look back at that peak. You're looking up at the peak and you go, you know what? I still want to go there. I still want to see what it's like up there. So what happened? Are you back to where you started? That depends on you. Now that you've gone part of the way up, you can assess, recharge, and be better prepared for a second go. Accept it as a setback and not a failure. Maybe the next time you train longer, bring more water, and be that much more prepared. So you try again, and this time you make it, and it's spectacular. Did you fail? Did you cheat? You still made it to the top, so no to both. You allowed yourself to bend instead of break, and you learned how to really climb a mountain along the way. And it was that flexibility that was your true path to success. So now that you're up there, now that you're on the peak, what do you see? What's next for you? Well, there's only one way to find out.
I'll start with Terry, because Terry's the first timer here. What stood out for you? What was your initial thought?
Well, I just thought that was a great little video on how on really how we achieve really big things, right? We achieve really big things, and what holds us back. So many times, we have a goal that's big, that's going to stretch us. We might even have fear around it, whether we can even do it or not. And if we look at the entire thing, if we're standing here and we're looking up, it can be completely overwhelming. But if we can break that down, into steps, one step after the other, then it's doable, right? And so, and the other thing that I really like, that I resonated with is, you may not make it on your first attempt, but you can learn why you didn't make it. You can adjust, try it again, and make it on that second or third attempt. And so, that it just reminds me of some things that I've experienced personally, exactly like that.
Yeah, and it's possible that it was influenced by you. So, Gia, what was one of your key takeaways, or a couple if you have?
I think one of mine was the idea of moving in the right direction. So it's like if you're pointed at least toward the thing that you want, it's not so necessary to measure every bit. It matters because it could be a zigzag. It might not be a straight line. So it's keeping the direction in mind and the intention in mind. So that really stood out to me, and I resonated with that.
Awesome. Great. So I'll go to Terry here. When have you not reached your initial goal and then had to start over again?
Well, one of the most recent, when I say recent, it's been 5 years now. But I set out, you had mentioned at the beginning that I was an Ironman. And so I had a goal to become an Ironman. I'd wanted to do it for 12 years, but told myself I could never swim that far. So I never tried. And then my son, who actually did it, really challenged me and said, Dad, even though you can't swim, you can learn to swim if you start. So he kind of walked me through that. He's actually coaching me to really determine what I wanted. He basically came down and said, Dad, do you want to do it or not? And that's when I really had to come to grips with that. If I wanted to, was it just an idea? Was it just, and I realized I really did. So I set out and I trained for that. And I was cut off at mile 90 because I didn't make, there's a time cutoff at several points along the way, and I didn't make it. So I was disqualified. And I hadn't planned on being disqualified. That scenario never played in my head. So it was a little bit surreal, but my day was over.
Yeah. And so what was your, what was the end result? Did you give up at that point?
No, it was interesting because, I think this goes back to your video. I think, is our goal to do it? Is our goal to try to do it and just see what the outcome is, right? And my goal was never to try an Ironman. My goal was to be an Ironman. And so I signed up for the next year. But I learned some things. And Gia, you might be able to speak to this a little bit more with your training. So I'll share it and let you commentate on it if you can. Here's what I learned. I signed up and I did it next year. What I realized, Peter, this was huge for me, is the first year I was motivated by fear. I was really motivated by fear, the fear that I couldn't do it, the fear that I wouldn't make it. And I didn't know it at the time, but everything inside of me, I had the sense of urgency. It was almost like, oh no, oh no, oh no, the whole time, which as I reflect, I wonder if that took more energy out of me, not only physically, but mentally and emotionally while I was on it. The next year though, when I came back, I was so determined. That fear never played a role. It was, I am going to do this. I'm going to push through it. And there was such a positive mindset and a positive emotion that went into it. and I didn't know it until after that second race, but it was so different. And so the next year it was hard. It took me, you have 17 hours to complete it, and it took me 16 hours, 58 minutes, and 4 seconds
Wow.
to complete it. I was absolutely the last finisher. I mean, I battled to the very end, but I just had that mindset I was going to do it.
And I think you've said a couple of things that are really important. And actually, what I wanted to talk about regarding the video, this ties in nicely. Sometimes we don't know what motivates us, right? So we just go, I want to be an Ironman, and we don't really know why and whatever. We don't maybe have to. But then, as you say, we get wound up inside with the fear. And I do think, to your point, that it is exhausting, because it's like the feedback we're giving our nervous system, the feedback we're giving our brain, puts us in a state where it's kind of not sustainable. We can't live in that state. So we think that we can borrow from there and be in this kind of like tension. But we find that we get exhausted, and maybe we can't accomplish our goal because so much of our attention and energy is being consumed by this fear and modulating the fear that we have inside. So when we switch it over to a positive goal, like when we go from I'm afraid I won't be able to be an Ironman to I am an Ironman, and now I have to like hit all the marks to be an Ironman. It's just, it's like you're bringing everything on board to move positively towards something without this danger element in your system that has you kind of moving in two directions at once.
Yeah.
So you don't have to protect yourself if you're going toward your goal positively, but you wind up kicking in your protective mode if you're in the fight or flight, fear, freeze scenario.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I felt that I didn't have the science or anything behind it. And again, I didn't know it until after the second one, but there was a significant difference in the way emotionally that I prepared and was motivated. So that's awesome.
Yeah, that is awesome.
Both experiences were great. I told my son, who did it with me the first time, that even though I didn't make it, I wasn't disappointed with my effort. I was disappointed with my outcome. But any of us know when you do something that big, it's the journey leading up to it that really makes you. So that was a great experience. And I gave it all I could. So again, I wasn't disappointed with my effort. I loved every minute of it. The second year, I had such a focus. It was just unbelievable, the focus that I had, the positivity behind it. And it didn't make it easy. And like I said, I had a minute and 56 seconds to spare. That was it. So it took everything I had. I was the final finisher. Nobody ever said, "Oh boy, look at that guy," But inside of me, it was such all I can say is a focus and determination that I didn't have in the first one. The last one was, oh my gosh, can I?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, that's a big difference. So let me switch to Gia. Put the spotlight on you, Gia. When have you been in a situation where you've had a big goal, you've attempted it, and maybe you didn't succeed the first time, and then you kind of got back on and reapproached and found success?
Ooh. Well, about 12, 13 years ago now, I had to sit for my licensing examinations for my boards. And at the time, the exams are different now. At the time, the first exam was a 4-hour multiple choice exam. And it was, I don't remember how many, like 250 questions or something, 4 hours. And I was so nervous about that exam, just so nervous. And I whizzed through the exam, and I think I finished it in 2.5 hours, which still makes no sense to me. And then at the end, there's this, it takes a minute to calculate. It asks you some questions while it's calculating, and then it just says pass. There's no like balloons that fly out of the computer, which I really wanted. It just says pass, P-A-S-S, small. And so that was a great experience. And so then I had to sit for my second boards. It's a very complex exam. And I thought, I'm going to be okay. Like, I got through the first one. This is going to be fine. Like, I can do it. I know I can figure out the rationale. This was it gives you 2 hours. I didn't feel like I had enough time. I started to notice the time, and I started to go more quickly toward the end. And I felt confident with my answers, and I hit complete, and it's calculating, and I'm sitting there and I'm just waiting for the PASS, and I'm looking at the screen like this, and it doesn't say PASS, but it says something. I literally couldn't even read the word FAIL. I couldn't even see it. I was like, that doesn't look like pass. Excuse me. I called Proctor and I was like, what is that? I don't understand. Like I couldn't, it said fail. Like I couldn't believe it. And I felt very defeated, and you have to wait several months before you can take it again. And I just was destroyed. I just didn't think that was going to happen. Like Terry was saying. And I was really bummed. And then I had to do all this like psychotherapy on myself to not beat myself up too hard and try to understand what happened. And I remember talking to my grandfather about it at the time. And he was saying, he just was so neutral and calm and chill. And he was like, and I wrote it down, you can't really succeed if you don't fail at least once. How would you even know what success is if you don't fail? And I thought, that's almost like a Zen koan. Like that was so cool. And so when I took the time away and I really came back to my studies and I changed myself to study in a different way, and I sat for my second exams and passed, I feel like I really appreciate my license in a different way. I feel like I embrace the success in a different way. I probably would have done balloons and a party if I had passed the first time without maybe the appreciation. The second time I didn't throw a party. I didn't have balloons. I just was like, I did this. I kind of brought it into myself, and I was like, yes.
At some point, because these are both stories of trying twice and succeeding the second time. At what point, if at all, where you really felt that I failed, I don't know that I want to do this again? If when you hit that point, I don't know that I want to do this again. That was hard. I don't know. Did that ever even occur to you, or did you have that thought for a minute?
When I think about the things that were important to me, I wrote a book. I grew up just very dyslexic, didn't know how to read or write until I got into college. I was functionally illiterate. Wanted to write a book for 25 years, but told myself I wasn't a writer. And then, one day, I had someone say to me, stop saying you're not a writer, and just start writing. And so I did. But I remember it was probably the toughest thing I've ever done in my life, emotionally, much tougher than the Ironman. I mean, it didn't even compare. And I think I never felt like I wanted to quit or I didn't want to do it, but getting through it was very, very hard, because what I had to overcome was the fact that I wasn't smart, that nobody would understand what I'm saying, that I would write something and people would read it and think, you got to be kidding me. You thought this was worth writing. There were so many things going on inside of my head that it made it really, really difficult. So it took me 3 years.
So what did get you through it?
So I hired a ghostwriter, and he went through the first 80%. And he took some things out, rearranged some things and stuff like that, made it better. And then for the last 20%, he would interview me, and then he would go write, and then I would read it, I would edit it, talk to him about it. And that's how we finished it. Now, the second book I wrote, from the moment we started till it was in my hand, was 3 months.
Wow. So
and
you were way better equipped to climb that mountain, it sounds like.
Yeah. I felt like I had a little bit more experience I could draw from. I felt like I knew what my strengths were, and I wanted to stay in my strengths, not on my weaknesses. So we learned, right? We learned how, about ourselves. We learned who else needs to be in our camp.
Yeah. And that brings up another point. You don't always have to climb the mountain alone, right?
Right.
Absolutely. Can you think of a time, it can be any time in your life, where you just were defeated? You just said, no, I'm not going to do it. And then just something changed and you just tried again. You just went for it again.
Playing piano.
Okay.
I feel really defeated. I still feel defeated when I play the piano. I just, it's almost like my desire to play is so strong that it gets in the way of playing.
Interesting.
So I can become impatient with myself. Like, I'm not playing. That's not what it's supposed to sound like, So I can become defeated, I'm saying, There is the potential to become defeated. I sometimes do, and I sometimes don't. And I think that, there's a vulnerability there when you really care about something. I think that when you set a goal, it's really super important to have your why.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why do I want to play piano? Why am I taking this exam? Why am I purchasing this house?
What advice or what insights would you give to someone who just doesn't quite have the strength that you have, maybe doesn't quite have I'm going to use a 70s term, the stick-to-itiveness that you have? What tools would really just kind of simplify it and get people just right back on target?
Well, why am I even doing this? And then what's my second reason why? Because that's sometimes the second is the real why, not the first. And then if we're still stuck, it's kind of like, whose voice am I running about this? Is this something I want to do, or is it an expectation I'm trying to fulfill that someone else has of me? I mean, it really starts to become like, can we get clear?
I was asked a question by a guy. I was coaching a team not far from here. And he asked me the question. He said, Terry, how can I become more inspirational? As if being inspirational comes from either reading a book or taking a course, but really inspiration is inside of you, period. It's in you. You don't manufacture that. It's not a class. It's not a course. You don't drink something and become inspirational. And really the thing that I said to him is, you got to identify what really motivates you, what's important about this that you must do, and speak from that place. Why do you want to lead people? What's important about the work that you're doing? How does it impact the world? How would you know that you guys were winning in your role? Really begin to go deep and ask. And if that doesn't motivate you, if you're not inspired by that, well, then we have another conversation.
Right, exactly.
Terry, what came up for you today that you didn't expect?
Well, that's a great question. You had asked, I forget earlier, it was one of the questions about, what client, what mountain did you not, climb, you weren't able to make, and then you thought, do I really want to do this? And I said, I don't really know if I have one, but that's not true, Peter.
Okay.
As we continue to talk, I realized it's probably because I didn't think of it, because it's a part of my story that has a lot of pain and I don't like to think about. And yet it's at the same time, I learned a lot. I was a pastor for 20 years, and in a pastoral role, I followed a man that started a church that the whole community loved, let alone just the people in the church. And he passed away with cancer, and I followed him. I didn't feel that I was maybe the right person to do that, but he did. Right? I mean, go back to what Gia said. Why are we doing this? We're doing it because we believe it is the right thing, or maybe somebody else. But he really did believe it. And, he had a lot of complimentary things to say about me and my leadership. And I ended up in that leadership role. And I realized after 2.5 years, I was really unprepared to lead at that level. And it was the worst time of my life. It was, I mean, people, I don't know if I had a breakdown, but some people think I may have. And if I didn't, Peter, I was right on the edge. But I remember coming, to the place where I said, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I know what I'm not going to do. And I'm not going to keep doing this. And I resigned, and I had no, direction, no plan, no nothing, no next step or anything. But it was such a relief. What I walked away with, Peter, was this fact that I'm not a leader. I should never lead again. I had no confidence to lead. I mean, and I just thought I would never, I just know that's not me. Completely shattered and broken. And Peter, it took me 5 years to get through that. Not only did I not feel the confidence to lead, but I didn't trust people. There was a lot of things going on to where I just didn't trust people. I didn't want to be around people, which is not me. I love people. Yeah. And so what the thing that helped me, Peter, was I had the opportunity to become a leader again in another organization. It was a real estate company. And my first thought was, no, I do not want to do this. And my sister was a leader, same role in a different market center in a different part of the country. And I talked to her about it. And after about 3 months of her talking to me and coaching me and stuff like that, I decided to go ahead and do it. Scared to death. That was so painful. And so, but here was the difference, Peter, is I came to a company that had unbelievable training, unbelievable mentorship, and unbelievable coaching. And they invested in me. They actually developed me. And that's what I realized. I was never developed as a leader. I had potential and it was just there. There was no development. There was no plan. There was no way of how do we take this potential and turn it into performance and into reality. There was none of that. Yet this new company did. And that's when I realized how powerful having not just a goal or an idea or what you want to do, but having the support, having the coaching, having the mentorship around you is absolutely critical. And so I wanted to share that with you because there was a time when I did not want to lead again. I said, no. And now here I am working with people like yourself and other people in MAPS. And I'm so grateful for that, what I call a second chance.
Yeah, and thank you for digging deep and finding that, because almost every success story has a failure story and a pain. Yeah. And for you to share that pain and really, I know it's hard. Yeah. Believe me, I don't want to talk about mine. So I really appreciate that.
I think that I guess something that surprised me, we could say, is the level of vulnerability that's involved in focusing on a goal. The level of vulnerability that is present when we care about something and we want to do something and it is for ourselves. That bringing that aspect in, I think, creates a nice balance, and it humanizes the experience and it humanizes us. So I appreciate what you shared, Terry. And I guess to answer that, what surprises me, it's the vulnerability.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of where we landed here, which is really great, because when you're looking at a goal, that's not what you're thinking about.
Not at all.
You're thinking about the goal, but you got to go through that vulnerability to get there. And that's my big takeaway from today too, is that we all like success. You're both successful, inspirational people, but you've gone through the pain, and you've had to go through that to get to where you are. And I think it's important for us to all remember that. Thank you, Terry and Gia, for being on our panel today. If you like what you saw, don't forget to like, comment, and most importantly, subscribe to this channel. We will be back again next time to look at taking ideas to action using SMART goals. Also, if you'd like to talk to me one-to-one about your business and where you want to take it next, click on the link below and we can set up a time. This topic really reaches me because my goals of the last year and a half are all new from what they had been before. So to really see you guys, your success and kind of understand the process better through you, really appreciate it. So thank you so much for coming and talking about this and really bringing it to a real level, I think, for all three of us in the end.
Yeah. Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Terry.
Yeah. Thank you, guys.